Okay. And now we're continuing the Sichot of the Rebbe, which comes from Likuti Sichot Alef, the first book of Sichot of the Rebbe. And if you remember, the Rebbe is talking over here about the idea that the Jewish people, they left Egypt because they had faith. Because of their faith, they left Egypt. And Jewish faith is totally unlike not Jewish faith. Non-Jews also have faith, they've got their religions. But Jewish faith is totally unlike non-Jewish faith. And the Rebbe says one way we can see this is that the Jewish faith means that in the most natural, normal things that you can totally explain by science or whatever, they believe it's a miracle. Right? This very simplistic way of looking at the world, that the whole thing is a big miracle. Of course, not to suffice with being simplistic, but on the other hand, not to omit simplicity from your personality, from the way you look at the world. Having this simple way of looking at the world is unique to the Jewish people and is the message of the Jewish people to all mankind. That every detail, every atom, every interaction, even what seems to be the most insignificant, most haphazard, most natural, predictable, is a miracle. On the other hand, the non-Jewish way of looking at things is to try to explain everything in a way that takes God out of the picture, to the point where even revealed miracles, the tendency is to try to downplay them. And of course, every Jew has a little non-Jew inside of himself also. So this is also present by the Jews in a big measure. But let's take the example. The Rebbe brings an example, and he brought the example of the splitting of the Yam Suf, of the, what do they call it, the Red Sea, which has been, we've said a million times, it's not called the Red Sea, it should be called the Reed Sea. But in any case, somehow they got the Red Sea. So Yam Suf. So when the Yam Suf split, that was a pretty big miracle. That's pretty, you don't see that every day. You know, all of a sudden the Atlantic Ocean splits or something, or the sea split. So this Yam Suf, it was a sizable river. You know, it was a big river. You know, the size of whatever is the Danube River or some other river, the Mississippi River. To split a river and go across, 3 million people. And it says it was even more that they really split into 12 different chambers, tunnels, and that they didn't really cross it. They just went down and they came out the same side. In any case, that's a big miracle. And it says that all the world knew about it. They heard about it and they were all shaken up. They're shaken up. It says, but you can, what did God do? He split all the water in the world. It says at that time he split all the water in the world. Why did he split all the water in the world? Why not just this water for the Jews? To give a place for people to say that it wasn't a miracle, it was some sort of a natural thing. So even in a miracle, there is the option to say that it was natural. And so you can find in all sorts of history books and now modern day, especially in Israel, that the giving of the Torah never happened. It was all made up, and the Jews never left Egypt. It's a Baba Maisa. They never left, and they were always out. But they have all sorts of explanations. The sea did not split. It was tidal changes. They all took LSD or something. They imagined it at the same time. They were hypnotized. Moses made it up. Right? He made the whole thing up. The Jewish people are the most gullible people in the world, but we know differently. We have woken up now after 3,300 years of ignorance, believing the Jews left Egypt and the split. We have seen the light. The whole thing was a big bluff. It didn't happen, and we're coming to. Okay, there's a lot of Jews. Also, there's not lacking Jews that say it never happened, it never was, it was never such a thing. But nevertheless, that is not a Jewish trait. The trait of the Jews is to do something that only Jews do, and that is they can do. To see that the most natural, normal thing is really a miracle. And it brings for an example. It says that in the Gemara, in the Yerushalmi, it says that a Jew believes he prays to what's it called, Chai Olam. He prays to God. A Jewish farmer, he prays to God and he plants his grain because he sees the growing of grain as a big miracle. So a normal person, a normal whatever, professor, Israeli professor will come and say, "Oh, come on, man! I mean, you must be the most stupid person in the world. There's millions of farmers in the world that don't believe in God and they plant and it grows wheat. How do you think everybody eats? Everybody's eating in the world, right? So it doesn't grow wheat; it grows rice, it grows whatever it grows, right? They grow potatoes, whatever that grows up, it grows up from people who don't believe in God. They don't have to believe in God. You put out a seed in the ground that grows up. That's the most natural thing in the world. What are you praying to God for? Who brainwashed you? So the Jew says, listen, I see in every detail of nature a miracle. There's Kuntras of Mind, there's a book called Kuntras of Mind. It says that there was, what is it? I think Rob Abba, I don't remember, to look and see, that when he was eating, when food would be put in front of him, he would pray to God for food. The food is sitting in front of you, and what are you praying to God for? You're not in a famine or something. What? He says, no. The fact of the matter is, every second is a miracle. No second really depends on the second before it, and no second is a natural cause for the second after it. Every second is a miracle by God, and everything that happens is a gift from God. And I'm not going to deny it. I'm going to be part of it. Right? I'm giving thanks to God. Okay, not everybody is at that level to do this in a genuine way. I mean, this rabbi did it in a genuine way. Maybe not now we are, but the poor person Moshiach is that we will be. So here we go. Let's go. So that's what the Rebbe says. Oh, what does mean? That's b'schus emuna. That's what it means. That in the merit of faith, does mean, this is what it means in the schus emuna, that in the merit of the faith of the Jewish people, nigalu avotenu, our forefathers left Egypt. What does it mean they left Egypt? What's this big thing about Egypt? Come on, leave the Egyptians alone. Why not say they left Syria or they left another place? Why do you have to keep saying Egypt? Right? The Egyptians are not such bad people. You got to get out of Egypt. It says that Egypt happened to be the name of the country, and the reason that country is called Egypt is because it signifies something much, much more general. This whole world is Egypt. Mitzrayim is Milashon Meitzarim v'Gevulim. The word Mitzrayim comes from the language of narrowness, and limitations. Un ze zainen in zwei ofan. It could be two ways. Mitzrayim de Kedusha. There can be holy narrowness and limitations. Das heißt, es hört sich an Göttlichkeit. A person feels godliness, and he's doing what God wants, and saying and thinking, but as is begrenzt, it's limited. In tam v'dat, he only does what he understands. Dugmas emuna b'shem Elokim, something like non-Jewish faith. Does the shorish v'natinas makom? This can be a source and a potential as birida b'shtalshlus, that it comes in another type of Mitzrayim, and that is Mitzrayim de Klipa. There can be Mitzrayim, which is the bad side. Was men forgets, the person forgets God forbid, chas v'shalom, totally about God. Biz until birida lamata mate comes lower and lower, shikua and memtas sharitum, it can become sunken in the 49 gates of impurity. Right? A person starts doing things logically. Take a simple example. Why should you be a religious Jew? Why? It's good. It's beneficial. You have better family life. There's less occurrences. The diseases, right? The lecturer pulls down this big, screen. It shows all the charts and all the statistics. there's less occurrence of disease, the family stays together, there's more happiness, there's less depression, there's less of this, less aggression, there's less of the addictions, you have a better life, and out of that you go to heaven. After that you go to heaven. You die, everybody dies, going to go to heaven. Pretty good, huh? Yeah, that's for me. Judaism, and I'm a Jew. That's for me. I'm going to go to Judaism. All sorts of proofs. Proof about why Judaism is better. Proof why the other religions are wrong. Proof. All these proofs. So good. So he's a Jew. He's a religious Jew. He has a good mind. Sits and he learns Torah and everything. But all of a sudden something happens. All of a sudden something happens, right? He gets fired from his job as the Rosh Yeshiva. Somebody doesn't like a book that he writes. Something bad happens to him. He loses his wallet. He loses his job. Some of the not nice things, or the opposite. Someone comes to him and says, "How would you like to star in this movie? You're going to be this," and he gets something really good. He gets some sort of a test. As soon as the test comes, he says, "Listen, what do I need Judaism in order to have a good life? Here, I'm all around all these other people. They have good lives. They're all happy. They're all joking around and this, right? Well, at least I won't be like them. So I'll tuck in my tzitzis. Maybe I'll cut off my beard. Maybe I won't wear a yarmulke. Maybe I don't have to wear tzitzis at all. I missed a couple of days of putting on tefillin. Little by little, he sees that he leaves Judaism. Nothing bad happens. Nothing bad happens at all. All of a sudden, he thinks, "Wow, this is okay. This is all the time I've been fooling myself. What's wrong?" Because all of the time when he was doing Judaism, it was always limited. He was never doing it for God. He was doing it for himself. Because he was doing it for himself, it means that everything was in logic. So true, he was a religious person and he did all the commandments and he knew all the laws and he was wonderful. And he was intelligent. He knew more than the 99% of the people. And he had a big title. It was a big this, right? But if anybody dares to stand against him, and if things don't go, all of a sudden, right? The whole thing is down the drain. So that's what he says. That's called Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim means that you serve God not in a miraculous way. Bezchut emuna, you want to get out of it, you have to have what's called faith. What does it mean? Was jeden haben sich klal nit gerechnet mit inyane olam. They didn't make any calculations with the world, ve taluchas hatava, and nature. As nit nor in inyanim ruchnim, not only in spiritual things, nor oichen in inyanim gashmim, also in physical things. In welche jeden seinen lechiora gleich zu olam, that we're equal to everybody else. Also there. In other words, the house that they had, the wife, the children, they didn't look at anything that was natural. This is not a normal, this is a crazy way to look at the world, but this is the Jewish way. Even the most natural things, they looked at it as being a miracle. They took nothing for granted. Nothing. Hates gebrach, this type of faith in connection to God, this brings the revelation from Shem Hashem, from the name of God, above nature. Ubamelis, automatically, a yetzia mimitzrayim, a person goes out of his limitations. Every moment is a surprise. Every moment is God's. And sometimes the best thing that can happen to a person is what he thinks is the worst. Right? Like they say, God always gives us what we need, not always what we want, but everything that happens is for our benefit, if we can accept it. Or nit nor from Mitzrayim, the Klippa, not only from the bad side, and I mean, this is if God does it, not if, it doesn't mean a person should go in and, lose all of his money or go down to someplace, get into fights with people to get beat up. Says it all comes from the Lord. You can't be a fool. Your foolishness also comes from God, but you have to know what to do with it. There's certain things you have to refrain from. That's also from God. Nor oich from Mitzrayim the Kedusha. This will take a person, this type of faith, seeing that every detail of life, every moment of the day is a miracle, believing this, even though there's no reason to, believing to, that's Jewish faith. What does is marumas, and this hint said Heintek said in our week's Torah portion in the thing of the Negoim of these, where the Rambam says vegan Negoim by this mitzoras that's called Negoim, nige begadim, nige batim. Sometimes there could be this tzorah, it could be in garments. Sometimes it could be in houses. It's not anything to do with the world. Nor osu pella. It is an amazing, something miraculous thing, Israel, kadei lazir, in order to warn them, milashon hora, not to say bad things. So here we have Matzora, is a terrible thing. A person could think, this got what's this got to do with God? I mean, Judaism is supposed to be a good thing, right? It's supposed to benefit me, not I'm supposed to benefit it. All of a sudden I get this discoloration and I'm impure. Who needs it? Says the Rebbe, this is the best thing for you. It comes to tell a person that he has to correct himself, and that he's on the wrong path. On is mavor barichos. Their seder was in them given. It explains what's the order of things. As the erste sagt, the first thing, mishtanos kiros beito. First of all, his house becomes smitten. Oib das hat nit geholfen. If this doesn't help, is mishtana klior. Then all of a sudden becomes the vessels of his garments. His garments, first of all, his garments of leather, and then etc. Unisovite. First of all, is the walls of his house, and then the vessels in his house, and then the person himself, and his garments, and then the person himself. What does it mean? That it comes closer and closer to a person that God is sending him messages that he has to clean up his act. Is kishem vi in their inyan and negoyim, just like in this thing of the plague of the negoyim tzoras. Hat men doch gezen klar, you could see clearly, as is nit mitzad teva, that it wasn't natural, nor kom milamala, but it comes from above. Azoya ben Eden geloibt, gegloiben, gebloit, gegloibt, that they believed, as als, that everything comes from God. Bashkacha pratis, in God, in God's individual direction. Nothing, no such thing as an accident. Or punkt vi by negoyim, just like by the tzorat is in yeder zach, everything, a kavana, a special purpose, a godly purpose. Vil hazir, for instance, like to keep a person away from sin, or etc. When be'emes is oich dan tov, really it's good. A farbargana good, a hidden good. Biz oich, until it can even be a tov begilui, a revealed good. A zoy vs is given like it was by the negoyim, revealed. Vs stayed, like it says. How was the negoyim? How was that good? It was terrible, wasn't it? Says Rashi, no, listen. It's like it says in Midrash, as durach them, when the Jews saw that they had this tzorat in their house, is natat to buy it. Sometimes they had to tear down the walls of the house. Hadmen gefunden, they could find in the walls matmonios shel zahav, hidden gold, otzros from gold, treasures of gold that the Canaanim hid there. So sometimes from things that seem to be bad, a person gets fired from his job, whatever, he realizes it was the best thing that could have possibly happened to him. It couldn't have happened a better thing. As we'll talk, okay, let's do another sikh of the Rebbe. Let's do a sikh. I'll show you in another place. Here we go. Let's do it in another place. Here we go. 1 second. Hebrew books. We can start it. We can start it. Here, we'll start over here. Too far. Too far. Oh, here it is. If I got the right one, I don't know if I do. 1 minute, 1 minute. Yeah, this should be it. Okay, here we go. There it is. Yeah. Okay. Okay, we can start at least. Here we go. The name of this week's Torah portion, it used to be called Rab Sadia Gaon, Rashi, and the Rambam. It wasn't called Metzora. It was called back then. Rashi was like 800 years. No, I'm sorry. Rashi was like 900 years ago. 900 years ago, a little more. Says they didn't used to call it Metzora. It used to be called Zot Tihiyah, the first two words of the portion. Zot Tihiyah Torah Metzora. That's what this will be. But in the later generations, the custom is to call this Torah portion, this Torah reading, by the name of Metzora. We have to understand, Metzora is inyan bilti rutzu. It's not a good thing. Lichora pas nit zurufa nasidra in Torah mit azoinomen. Why should we call it by such a terrible name? I mean, if it used to be called Zot Tihiyah, so keep calling it Zot Tihiyah, though that's the first words. Ubafrat nachan, especially after the freer earlier, the Torah was called a different name. This Torah portion was called Zot Tihiyah. This will be. That was the name of the Torah, and they didn't want to call it Metzora. We learned, if you remember from the previous, that the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe didn't even used to say the word Metzora. He didn't say it. Mutaga Gehazen mit an anderen Namen was called another name. Only in the later generations, Hatman Eber Gebitten, they changed in Friedrich the previous name, and they started calling it with a not good name. Why would they want to do that? Says the Rebbe, we also have another question over here we can ask. Zot Tihiyah Torah Metzora, Hoval Kohen. What does it say? This will be the Torah, the laws of the Metzora. You bring him to the Kohen, which this is not understandable. First of all, it says clearly, Vayetze a Kohen el mechutz hanah. It says that the Kohen, that you don't bring, here it says you bring the Metzora to the Kohen. You bring him. V'huva, he is brought to the Kohen. You bring him. What does it mean? You bring him? It means that somehow or other he lets people know that he is impure. He's supposed to be living alone. But he lets people know, and then they bring him to the Kohen. But right the next sentence it says, Vayetze a Kohen, that the Kohen, he goes outside of the camp. A Kohen can't go outside of the camp. As the Kohen gedarft Oiske, and he had to go to the Metzora. If so, what does it mean? Behuva Kohen, that you bring him to the Kohen. The Metzora hadach nitke trakt arangekumen zum Kohen. The Kohen doesn't have to come. The Metzora, he doesn't have to come, but he just has to be outside of the three camps. He has to be outside. So what does it mean the Kohen, he goes out to him? No, that you can sort of understand. What does it mean that he's brought to the Kohen? What does that mean? Also, why does it say that he is brought to the Kohen? Why doesn't it say he goes to the Kohen? What does it mean he went? Let's say he's pure, he can go into the Kohen. So why does the Kohen have to come out to him? What does that mean? The Rebbe is going to learn a tremendously deep lesson from this about us today, especially now in the time right before the Moshiach, and we'll talk about this, God willing, tomorrow. Right now, let's learn the Yom Yom. Among my father's regular Torah study sessions, a parsha of the Chumash with Rashi, reciting Tanakh by heart, a chapter of the Torah Nevi'im Ketuvim, a chapter of Mishnayot. That's the things he would learn every day. A regular session in learning deeply into the Talmud, 2 pages a week. Also in learning a lot of pages in a rapid study. That we learn 3 pages every day. He would learn the Jerusalem Talmud, a regular period for learning the codes of law, but not every day. In the course of the year, he would finish the entire Midrash Rabbah, and he would take from the long Sidra and he'd paying the shorter ones. In other words, he would every day he would learn a big portion of this Midrash Rabbah, trying to finish the whole thing every year. There's some weeks are very short, so he would include in them the next week's learning. In other words, this is the previous Rebbe speaking. The Rebbe Rashab, even though he was a tremendously busy person, but he had a time for every day learning Chumash with Rashi, saying Tanakh, the prophets, whatever, by heart, and a chapter of the Mishnayos, and learning the Gemara deeply, and also 3 pages of the Gemara in a more superficial way, and etc. every single day. So we should fill up our days with learning Torah. Have a good day with Moshiach now. Hope to see you all at 3 o'clock when we'll continue learning about the laws of the Metzora, or maybe we'll get today the laws of the Tzorat in houses. Hope to see you at 3 o'clock. Have a good day with Moshiach now.